Nanami versus Higuruma is a versus battle that, especially in concept, is very interesting. With both of these characters possessing numerous similarities, including a serious demeanor relative to their fellow sorcerer, a sense of morality and justice that is admirable within a world as dangerous as this one, and them even both holding the rank of grade 1, I decided that I just had to make a video on these two, pitting them against one another. So today, me and my friend No Operator will be pitting these two characters against each other, going over their strength, speed, intelligence, and abilities, all in order to decide who would win and why. But before we get into scaling these two characters, I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. In this day and age, not protecting yourself online with a VPN is about as intelligent as Jogo pulling up to Gojo. That is to say, wandering around the cyberspace unprotected just isn't smart, and that's where Surfshark VPN comes in. Surfshark allows you to get the best prices online. It keeps your personal information safe and secure even when you are out in public by encrypting your information, and the feature that I get the biggest kick out of is Surfshark's ability to let you access multiple streaming service catalogs. So if you have a Netflix show you want to watch that isn't available in your region, just the click of a button, you can change your online location and access just about any show that you want. Just pick a server, connect, and boom, you'll be watching your favorite shows in no time. And if all of this sounds great already, just hold on because it gets even better. If you scan the QR code in the right hand corner right now or click the link in the description below, you can use my promo code BrokenRonin to get 83% off and 3 months extra free on your 24-month VPN plan. By the way, it has a 30-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Just go down in the description below and click the link to sign up for a VPN that will enhance your internet going experience. Thank you once again to Surfshark for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get back to the scaling. So starting with Higuruma, let's just take a look at some of his general stats, abilities, feats, and hacks in general, just so we can get a gauge of what Nanami is going to be up against. And Noah, how do you look at Higuruma as a fighter in his first showing?
So honestly, for Higuruma only being a sorcerer for what, like a week or two, he actually has some pretty good feats, I won't lie. Even before he fights Yuji, it's already assumed that he's gained at least 100 points, which means he's had to have at least taken out 20 different people at the very least, which is a feat on its own, once again, for only being a sorcerer for the last 2 weeks. But even in his fight with Yuji, we see him keep up with Yuji physically, even put Yuji on the back foot physically, even though that really is just because he can't really control his cursed energy. Yuji's a special case when it comes to hand-to-hand combat and physical strength, so that's nothing to be messed with, to be completely honest with you. And overall, what really makes Higuruma such a powerful sorcerer, and probably the way that he caught the 20 bodies that he did before he fought Yuji, was with his curse technique, or more specifically his domain expansion, which basically revolves around any crimes that the victim has basically committed throughout their lives, whether it be yesterday or a couple of years ago, whatever Higuruma can use. And as long as they're found guilty for that crime, they lose their curse technique, which most likely interferes with their cursed energy control, which usually puts them at enough of a disadvantage for Higuruma to take the W. And even if that's not enough, if you really get the death penalty with Judgeman, then he has the Sword of Extermination, and that's a single, basically, touch of death, where basically he touches you with it, whether it be a slash, a poke, or a graze, and then you're done.
Yeah, if you get caught with that, it is an instant death sort of attack. It should, just based on the way it's explained, apply to basically anybody. There shouldn't be very many, if any, exceptions to that in the verse. So the Executioner Sword or Extermination Blade or whatever it's called, that should be sort of looked at as a instant lose for anybody that it cuts, including really anybody in the verse. And like Noah already said, Higuruma's main appeal is his curse technique. It's really the domain expansion, like he said. You commit a crime, you're kind of done for in his eyes, unless you're really good at lying and ratting your way out of getting caught. Yuji, unfortunately, committed some crimes and isn't super intelligent, so we kind of got the short end of both straws. So yeah,
Higuruma was even nice enough to tell him how he could have gotten out of it afterwards too. He's like, you could have just said this.
Yeah, exactly. Like for Yuji, his way to get out of getting the curse energy confiscation was relatively easy, although that probably won't be for every character. Like you said, he's caught 20 bodies for a reason. He's clearly a very competent, strong, and at this point, almost seasoned in battle sorcerer, which is weird to say because of how little amount of time he has been one. Obviously, the narrator says that Higuruma's a prodigy who was able to create a domain and then work backwards from that to use his technique. I mean, he's just clearly very competent, very intelligent from his lawyer status, and as a sorcerer, he seems to have even more potential. Physically, I think is where Higuruma lacks the most. We have a couple of statements where Higuruma is just outright in awe at Yuji's physical strength without curse energy enhancements. He's an unbreakable doll, and Yuji's dodging his abilities. He's accounting for the hammer shape-shifting and disappearing all over the place, which is one of Higuruma's, I would say, somewhat tricky but maybe underrated abilities because everybody focuses on the domain expansion, to be honest, rightfully so. But his ability to make his hammer appear and reappear at different points and different shapes and sizes and apparently weights, I would say is a pretty impressive, or at least like it's a low level hacks that I think kind of could trip people up if you're relative to Higuruma. So I would say that outright he's pretty good. I mean, he's just stated to be a grade 1 sorcerer, so he should be in the same tier as Nanami. He's clearly just a high level combatant. And let's see how he kind of compares to Nanami himself in that physical stat department and just overall as a fighter. To look at Nanami's stats a little bit, look at his resume. He is relative to Mahito in base form. This Mahito is in his infancy state and hasn't gotten stronger numerous times, but keep in mind that this Mahito is still a special grade. He is still considered like on the same tier as a early Jogo, as a Hanami, as a Dagon. Even if you don't think that he's quite as strong as them, he's considered a class above the rest. Even characters or even curses like the Finger Bearer should be below that just because of his ability to speak. He has a clear, like, higher capacity for sorcery and curse energy manipulation in general. Nanami being able to fight him to a stalemate is pretty impressive on his part. He then comes in and is able to tag team Yuji, or tag team Mahito with Yuji, which is once again a pretty impressive feat considering that Yuji with curse energy is considered one of the like higher level combatants within his general tier of strength. Megami seems to think that he could take on basically anybody in Goodwill with straight hands. So that's pretty impressive outright. And then obviously, when you look at Nanami in overtime, when you look at Nanami when he's really going all out, he's really got to clock in for some more work, he just gets even stronger. Nobara is someone who's seen Yuji fight. She's someone who's seen Esso and Kechizu, and she's fought with them just by herself. She's hit a Black Flash. She's achieved a new level of power, and she struggles against someone like Haruta. Nanami then comes into the fight and just makes Haruta look like a baby. He's so much more powerful, in fact, that Nobara looks at Nanami and is in awe that this is the real power of a grade 1. So clearly Nanami is someone that I think up until Shibuya should be compared to Yuji physically. Even Ino says that in terms of physical output, in terms of just pure striking strength, Yuji might be on the level of Nanami. Now, the contentious point of this statement in question is he talking about Nanami's physical power without the ratio technique or with it? And to be honest, for the context of this video, it honestly doesn't matter. If you want to try to downplay the feat a little bit, or at least be a little bit more conservative, you could just say Nanami just with ratio technique scales to Yuji's full charged up output without it. And even if you say that, it's clear to basically anybody in the series that Yuji physically is no slouch.
Yeah, 110%.
Yeah, so I think on that front, I would say Nanami physically is very, very powerful. We obviously know about the ratio technique. If he's able to hit you across the 7-3 line, you're basically done for. Unless you're someone that is so overwhelmingly more physically powerful than him that you can just outright tank it, someone like Dagon being an example of this, you're not really going to be standing in the way of ratio technique without taking some sort of extensive damage.
I don't see Higuruma being able to be durable enough to handle that. And even with the ratio technique, we know it's also able to be used on not even just people, but also objects. So that being said, if Nanami was able to get a good strike on the hammer itself, on the gavel, now that's also another interesting question. Do you think without the gavel, if that was actually broken with the ratio technique, do you think that completely makes Higuruma's curse technique null and void?
It might, because I think that's how we see him activate it, no? That's how we see him activate it initially. He slams the gavel down and the barrier pops up, right?
Yeah, it's just very interesting to think, like, either way, I think the ratio technique does present a very serious threat to Higuruma, not even just on his person, but with his whole way of fighting. The way that he extends his hammer and always has that as, like, at a vulnerable, like, place.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that definitely should be taken into account. Now, we've kind of scaled both characters. Let's get into a couple of scenarios that we could see this playing out as, because we talked about this a little bit before recording, but Higuruma versus Nanami is a little bit of a tough match for Higuruma because of how clean cut Nanami seems to be. Just like, not just how much of a good person, but how much of a stickler for the rules Nanami is sort of perceived or portrayed to be within the story. So I don't know if you want to get into that a little bit about how
Nanami's the kind of person to be a hall monitor. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, honestly, I couldn't have put it better myself. Nanami will see your shirt not tucked in and tell you to fix that, right? I mean, that's just the type of person he is. He's a stickler for the rules. He's very uptight, and that does not mesh well with being a criminal. Obviously, we don't know if Nanami never did anything back when he was younger, right? It's possible, but I do think that Nanami seems to have always been like that, always been a little bit of a stickler for the rules.
Yeah, we even see him in the hidden inventory arc. You know, he seems kind of the same as he always has been. The only thing I could say, and that you could even pin on him, which I would say isn't even his fault, he may have done it against his will, is if he did any, you know, bad deals when he was working as a finance person. He's even telling the person he's training not to mess with people or not to take advantage of people. Yeah. So even in that kind of line of work where it's very easy to stray from the path, he was pretty straight-laced.
Yeah, he was just like, no, don't take advantage of people, right? If we're gonna do deals, let's make him on the up and up. So that to me implies Nanami wasn't willing to do those types of deals, even if it made him less money. At best, you could say Nanami was maybe a little bit slimy in that era. Like maybe he was a little bit of a trickster, I guess, but that wouldn't necessarily even lead to being illegal. It wouldn't necessarily lead to being a crime, because a lot of things in that profession are kind of sit in that gray area legality-wise, and that would be pretty bad for Higuruma, because I think, as we've agreed, and as most people that are aware of Nanami's character would also agree, that means he's going to get in there, Higuruma's going to be looking for some files, he's not going to see anything, and then maybe the domain just stops and he's like, all right, well, now I just got to scrap with you.
Yeah, maybe Judge Man just goes away and the domain dispels. And at that point, I mean, that is kind of a brutal flaw to the technique. If you're going up against someone that is very squarish, Nanami is just that kind of guy that would tell on you. Nanami's that kind of guy who would, overall, he's the kind of guy that is a perfect counter for Higuruma, to be completely honest with you.
And you can't even say that Higuruma, outside of the domain, he just fights him well. Because, I mean, as I've mentioned, Nanami is compared to a Shibuya Yuji with cursed energy. Higuruma isn't able to put down very easily a Yuji without cursed energy, right? And we just know outright, even with Yuji, someone who doesn't rely on cursed energy completely, Yuji with amped cursed energy and Yuji without it are completely different levels of sorcerers,
Night and day.
Yeah, exactly. Toto just says Yuji going from an amateur cursed energy user to someone post Black Flash, Yuji's he's just different. He's a completely different level of power. Now imagine if you take all of that away at once and you just make him back just to a normal superhuman level of person, right? Nanami, I think in terms of speed, in terms of strength, and with a technique that works very well in close quarters combat, would be someone that Higuruma probably just wouldn't be able to be in any realistic scenario.
Yeah, like I said before, I feel like he's just the perfect complete counter to Higuruma. If Higuruma's curse technique cannot work, then that's what really gives him the advantage. Being a sorcerer who's only been around for 2 weeks, he really hasn't developed very many tactics. He really hasn't developed very much fight IQ. I mean, he does handle Yuji pretty decently, but as we've stated before multiple times, this was Yuji without cursed energy, who, like I said, even without cursed energy, was strong enough to shock Higuruma with how durable he was and how much he was able to handle this. Yeah. Either the 20 sorcerers that he fought before must have really also been rookies.
You mentioning the 20 sorcerers before is we also don't know the level of sorcerers that he fought, so they could all either be just outright bad people considering they were in the Culling games. They might have just previously committed a bunch of crimes. We don't really know. It depends. Or they could just be scrubs, like you said, right? With Nanami, we've kind of seen who he's fought against. We've kind of seen his pedigree. We see the level of competition he goes up against. Higuruma's out here trying to crush full power Yuji, or not full power Yuji, actually. He's going full power. A cursed energy-less Yuji is able to go relative blow for blow with him with all of his might. And with what seemingly to be Higuruma's kind of big attack with the massive hammer, Yuji's able to block it and is like, all right, I would like to not be under this hammer anymore. But he's able to hold it there for a little bit as he figures out the inner workings of Higuruma's ability, which sort of speaks to, one, Yuji's strength, but also to Higuruma's lack of physical ability. He seems to completely rely on his opponents being weakened and not having the ability to fight back fully, really being taken aback by the fact that their curse technique, something that they've probably had for years at this point, has just been stripped from them. The only really win con is Higuruma just taking Nanami's technique, messing up his curse energy control, and then beating him there. But as you've established, that is so unrealistic and so out of character that I honestly don't even want to like call that a win con as a real potential option. It sort of just seems completely out of character and completely out of the narrative for that to happen.
Completely. I completely agree. I just don't see it happening any other way than Nanami surviving the domain expansion, if there even is one, and then Nanami just completely outclassing Higuruma in the physical realm.
Yeah, 100%. So this is probably one of the more one-sided battles that we've done, just in like straight up videos, just because, I mean, Nanami kind of just beats Higuruma up, like very simply. There's not a lot of back and forth to be going on. So
I've been sitting here trying to find stuff to say. There's just really nothing to say.
yeah, for sure. So if you guys did enjoy this video, you know, you can go and check out the other no-op collabs that I've been doing. Got a long Toji video for you guys. Some other videos just doing some versus battles. So if you guys want to check that out, the playlist of that's going to be in the right-hand corner. Make sure to subscribe to me and no-op. We both make good content, both be making videos and collabing on other channels. So you guys can, you know, definitely make sure you don't miss out on any of those videos. Thank you guys for watching another video, and we'll see you in the next one.